Alrighty, so question 1. List the ways that assessment methods might differ in the different learning domains. So I'm just going to kind of go through, explain what each of those domains are, and then why kind of classroom assessments are important, and then different ways that teachers can assess, and how the ways that they can assess are best for cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. So cognitive domain is basically the intellectual skills that someone has. And so this is things like problem solving skills and critical thinking. And then affective domain is basically how we deal with emotions. And then finally, psychomotor domain is like physical movement, fine motor skills, and coordination. So in a classroom, we assess because we want to find where students are, like what they already know. So for placement, and that kind of falls into diagnostic and like diagnostic testing. So those kind of go hand in hand is how I see them. And then there's formative assessment. And so that's when these are just like ongoing. This is from the textbook, so it's on page 183, and those are ongoing assessments to monitor your students' progress. And they have, and that's the end of the quote, and so they verify that learning is occurring and like what the curriculum is appropriate, and it provides feedback for the students. And then there's some summative assessment, and that's basically like an overview of what the students know and just kind of assessing that. And then areas that a teacher can assess. So there are a few. So knowledge and conceptual understanding, thinking, skills, and attitudes. So for knowledge and conceptual understanding, that kind of goes in hand with cognitive domain, and just assessing on that is good because it's how the students are thinking and how they're using critical thinking skills. And that also goes hand in hand with thinking. And then skills, that kind of goes in the psychomotor domain because it's working on different types of skills, and those can be math, fine motor skills, anything. So based on what skills it is, that's what domain it will be in. But if it's like fine motor skills, like putting blocks together and seeing if a student can do that, then that would be in the psychomotor domain. And attitudes, especially since I think everyone in the class is a elementary ed major, or if not, a lot of people are that I've met, and it's crucial that we work on the affective domain and like how students deal with emotions and just process emotions. And so yeah, that's like when assessing attitudes and just growing those skills as students, because they're not born with those skills. And then for the next question, how did some teacher assess me and that kind of thing? So mine actually was in uni, and I had Leanne Smith, and for our final project we had to like create a big thing, and it was like not a test, but it was rather a project that was only applicable to us. And I hated it in the moment, but I look back and like that's one project that I was like, oh, like actually that really helped me in life, because it helped me put like a perspective on what kind of life is and where it goes. And she was able to accomplish that because it was so personalized to us, and just it was so cool because like I hated it, but looking back, like that was one of the most beneficial projects that I've ever done, and it helped me in the future so much, and just grasp a perspective that I wouldn't have been able to grab if it was just like a test where it was multiple choice. So yeah. For part 2, the choice question, I'm going to be answering what forms of assessments do you plan to use with your future students. So right off the bat, I know I want to kind of stay away from multiple choice questions, because like it says on page 198 of the textbook, their function is to distract the unknowing students from the answer while not confusing the knowing students, end quote. And while I think that's good, I think it kind of, if a student knows part of the answer but not all the answer, it can be very misleading to what they know. So by doing things like short answer and completion items, and just like where you give the student a question and they can just go with it how they know, that shows you more of their thinking process in a way, and they are able to like show what they already know, and they're not basically stopped when they don't know the answer, or the answer that they get isn't on the like A, B, C, or D. Also, since I'm going to be doing elementary ed, I may do like a few like very, very, very short essays, but not very many just because the children are so young. So I think just doing short answer and completion and like very few multiple choice, but lots of like hands-on and projects where the students don't necessarily like look at them as like, oh, it's a test that we're taking, but rather like an assignment that they're doing, because then I think that like strays away from a lot of test anxiety that students have, and just I'm still able to see what they know and how they're thinking, but they're not overwhelmed by the idea of like, oh, we have a test today, like I need to know this, this, and this. And when they just do a project, they're like, oh, this is like fun, and I feel like they're not as stressed towards it. So yeah. So for part 3, the like last one that we haven't had before, like the reflection questions / topics. So what would you consider as a highlight of this course? I really liked how much we went in the textbook, and another thing that I really, really liked is our PLCs, because I had never been in one, and like, yeah, it was hard to find the time to like meet with our group every week, but I thought it was so beneficial, and like we would talk about the class, but they could also answer like other questions that I had. So like I had a question on the praxis, and they were able to help me and like walk me through that, because some of them had done it and some of them were in the process of it with me. So that was really, really helpful, and I really liked that about the course. And then what is something that you really enjoyed or were surprised to learn, whether academically or about yourself? Probably about myself. I was happy to learn that like education and testing and all these things, like what I've done in the past and like my past experiences in the classroom in elementary school, like how that's affected me and how that like makes me think as a teacher. It's been really cool to see, because I'm like, oh, when I was in elementary school, like I was talking about before, like the word test really scared me, so I can stray away from that if possible and just kind of assess students in other ways that don't seem as scary. And academically, I just thought all the material in the course was really helpful to learn, and it was really cool to do it with my PLC and just have those PLC tasks and assignments, and just being able to talk about it with other people in the class, even though it was an asynchronous class. So I really enjoyed the class though, and meeting all of you.